Joining us now is Mick Mulvaney, former White House Chief of Staff to the President Trump, co-chair of Actum Strategic Advisors, and former U.S. Congresswoman Donna Edwards. I'll start with you, Congresswoman. I don't know if you have an opinion about so-called stock buybacks. Corporations, obviously, do try to satisfy shareholders and other stakeholders, but the shareholders are the people that risk their capital in whatever business endeavor that the company is involved with. Sometimes CEOs decide or boards decide we're going to issue shares because we've got a lot of great investments we want to make and expand. Sometimes they reduce the balance sheet by buying back shares. Do you think inherently we can make a value judgment about whether a buyback is somehow evil or some insidious sort of action by a corporation?
Well, in this case, I mean, Chevron and other oil companies have complained about not having production capacity and drilling capacity. And so here, it would be one thing if Chevron were spending their money to increase production, to innovate, to invest in new technologies. But instead, in this buyback, sure, shareholders are getting paid, but those CEOs are also getting a great payday as well. And I think that what President Biden was speaking to is to your average consumer who is just being stretched to the limit. And this seems just really extraordinary. And there's nothing wrong with making a profit. Don't get me wrong about that. But this is really extraordinary, an unbelievable amount at a time when consumers are just being stretched to the limit.
Well, we know we don't need to revisit it again, but President Biden's on record saying we will end the fossil fuel industry. We know about the immense pressure from ESG and from the climate lobby about wanting these companies to transition or basically, I mean, a year and a half ago, members of Congress were excoriating oil executives for not cutting production as much as Europe had cut in terms of emissions. Suddenly there's Putin invades Ukraine, oil prices go up. Now the administration turns around and said, why aren't you producing more? That's a total 180 from where they were before. So if an oil company decides that that business is not going to be viable 5 years from now, why not return the money to shareholders? That's what a corporate person, a prudent corporate executive would do that.
Are you asking me? I mean, look.
I am. So I don't see how you can argue the opposite. I'll get Mulvaney to make that point maybe, or if he wants to. I don't know what he feels about this. But you see what I'm saying? I mean, do you think the government should be in the business of telling corporations what to do in terms of satisfying their shareholders who own the company? Congresswoman? Oh,
okay. Yeah, Look, I think that nobody's arguing that in this environment that these companies are making money. The question is, what do you do? What do you do with that? Sure, you return some of it to shareholders, but they also have a lot that they can do in terms of investment in their own infrastructure, so that they can make their production capacity much more efficient. And, while I do think that we have to wean ourselves off of fossil fuels for all kinds of reasons, and it's not the least of which, of course, is the climate and the impact on the environment. But at the same time, we also know that we're going to have a multi-tiered kind of energy sources that are going to last into at least the near future. So I get where the White House is coming from on this. And at a time when there's so much strain, you would think that oil companies would show a little bit of shame here in terms of what they're deciding to do with their 75 whatever $billion it is.